My name is Shasta Nelson. I'm a friendship expert, and I was friendship dumped a few months ago. Not fun words to say. Yeah, no fun. It's like breakups, yay, let's talk about that. This isn't one of those like feel-good series that we're going to do, but it's a really important subject to talk about. And we all go through it. And I shouldn't even say even friendship experts, because that is of no surprise to me at all. And yet, I hope it brings some comfort to the rest of you as we just remind ourselves that it's impossible to go through life not disappointing each other, not living up to each other's expectations. We hurt each other. Very few of us. I don't know anybody who wakes up one morning and says, I want to hurt my friend, or I hope I disappoint my friend. And yet, boy, we do it all the time, don't we? And so this is such a part of life. In fact, the research is showing that, you've often heard me quote that research is showing we replace half our close friends every 7 years, which means who you feel close to today probably looks a little different than who you felt close to 7 years ago, and it will look different than who you're close to 7 years from now. I saw one study that said we make about 396 friends in our lifetime, and we'll only stay in touch with about 1 out of every 12. So there's definitely endings going on. We know that. And I'm going to do a whole series here on relationship breakups, friend-voruses, however you want to call it, as we are just kind of looking at, like, what does it feel like? What can we learn from it? How can we try to repair friendships? When do we know if we can repair it? And how to survive and recover from and all that good stuff. So I'm just going to do a bunch of videos, each kind of taking a little bit of the wisdom that I have been reminded of and harvested and learned in my own recent experience. Because, oh my gosh, so painful. So painful. So just want to I made sure it's been months later because I wanted to process it on my own before sharing it and make sure that I feel as healthy and as good as possible and do it from a really beautiful, light place if possible. And I want to make sure that we harvest everything we can from the experience if it can be of any benefit to anybody else, right? So, all right. So in this first video, and if you want the other videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit subscribe and you'll be notified when new videos go up. But in this first one, I just wanted to share 3 of the truths, the takeaways that I had to remind myself of all the time as I was going through this very hard process. And so if you're in the middle of your process right now or have recently gone through it, these are 3 truths that I hope will help kind of orient and give you context to as you place your pain in the bigger picture. So the first one is relationships hurt. They hurt. And they are amazing. And those 2 opposite things, seemingly opposite things, can both be true. And so I start off by just reminding myself that yes, this hurts. And I don't minimize that at all. I cried. I felt caught off guard. I felt hurt that she didn't want to repair it, that I felt like I wasn't worth it to her. It's hard. You feel like you failed. You feel shameful. You feel you lost for losing a friend that you loved and for all those memories that you made and for not being able to fix it and for just the sense of, yeah, it's painful. Yeah. So I don't minimize that at all. I'm somebody who really believes, let's own that. Let's not minimize that or sugarcoat it. It hurts. It hurts to lose somebody you love. It hurts to fail. It hurts to forgive. And relationships are so worth it in general and with her specifically, right? So I have to go through this process holding the duality of both. I don't want to land on one over the other. I don't want to just live in this land of they're horrible, relationships hurt you, or you should never get close to somebody and treat that like that's the truth and the end all and the be all and see that's why you shouldn't trust somebody or that's why. I don't want to be there. They do hurt, but neither do I want to be on the other side where I pretend this doesn't hurt and where I'm just move on, just only have time for good things in life, because that's not true either. They're both true. Deep pain, and that is because there was deep love. And I'm so grateful for that love. And I'm so grateful for those memories. And I'm grateful for the 10 years that we had. And we've got great great times we were together. We were there for each other through some really hard things. And even as I'm telling you, I'm thinking of like what she did for me here, what she said to me here that means so much, what I loved this memory over at her place. And I immediately am just like, I'm so grateful for all of that. And so I want to hold that, and I want to remind myself, no matter what's going on, no matter what I'm losing, I'm grateful for that friendship and trying to stay in a place of gratitude. And that's hard. There were times where, there's a lot of other emotions that come up, and they're valid. And relationships are so worth it. Remember, how loved and supported we feel says more about our future happiness and health than any other factor. We do not want to give up on that only because we've been hurt and disappointed in another area. No more than we would say, we shouldn't exercise because we've been injured before, or no more than we would walk away from get food poisoning and we'd conclude we should never eat anymore, right? So bad things happen, and that still means there's nourishment and goodness in the good parts of it. And so I just hold both those things with open hands as I go through a grieving process where I keep reminding myself how much love, support, relationships are healthy and good. And yes, it hurts so much. All right, so that's like truth 1. Truth 2 is, you're going to see a common theme between these. Truth 2 is about myself. Like, I messed up. What I did not do with bad motives. I did unknowingly. I said something that ended up not at all being taken the way that I had pictured it going. And yet, that's not to say I was right, and it's not to say that I should defend myself. I messed up, and I'm guessing that it wasn't only that situation that messed us up. I'm guessing that there had probably been a pattern of other things I had done that disappointed her that I didn't know about, that I was not living up to. I probably wasn't, because if it had been a really rewarding, really positive, really meaningful, like just somebody she could really depend on and rely upon and feel rewarded by, then my guess is that me making a mistake probably would have been taken in that bigger context. But somewhere along the line, my fear is that we created, that I wasn't doing something that she would have been meaningful, or that I was doing something that was hurting and I didn't know about it. And so my invitation in this moment is to not defend myself, to not sit there and say, well, she shouldn't have taken it that way, and that's not the way I meant it, and that's certainly there. And yet the invitation is, I messed up, I hurt somebody, so where's all the places I can own? What can I look back on and say, wow, I wish I had done that differently. Maybe she didn't feel loved by me in this way, and maybe I should have given more attention here and that way. And really looking at where are all the places I can grow, and what can I learn from this, and how does this inform some of my other relationships? Am I at risk of making this mistake or not noticing something? And so really taking ownership of my responsibility, even though I felt so defensive and felt I don't feel like I did something blatantly mean. That doesn't mean I couldn't have done better, right? And then the duality of that is that I take responsibility and ownership, and I'm not a bad person. And I think, again, we can get so caught up in one or the other. We either just beat ourselves up and take all the blame and feel insecure and say, see, we're not good at friendships, and we just kind of wallow in our failure, and that's not helpful. Or we can just be so over here and just be like, I'm not a bad person, and just so defend that story that we think that we can't allow for any failure, any learnings to come in, or it means we're bad. And that's not the case at all. I can be a really, really good person and mess up. I can be a loving person and fail people. I can be somebody who is as intentional as possible, and I will not live up to your expectations. And so somehow I have to hold both of those and say, I messed up and I forgive myself. And I'm still a good person, and I will keep learning from this, and I'll keep practicing friendship. So holding both of those with open hands. And then my third and final truth is going to sound super similar, but the same is true for her. And this is really important. It's again, in this case, I said something that was taken in a different way than I meant it. And so I was the one who did something that caused the rift. And yet there's no way to get through a breakup without both people hurting each other in some respects. And so just the fact that she wasn't willing to talk with me about it hurt me. It betrayed my expectations of what I thought we had. It betrayed my hope of what I thought we could do together, and so I felt hurt, and I felt defensive, and I felt angry, and I felt like the way it was handled was not healthy and mature and the best of what I was hoping for. And so it's very easy for me to have gotten hurt and to see what she could have done better or done differently. And that's important to see. There's not. Yeah, I mean, those things hurt me, and just because I did the initial thing that hurt her doesn't mean I don't get hurt in the process either. So it's important for all of us to look and say, yeah, I can learn from this and grow, and I got hurt too, and there's a loss, and there's grief there, and there's anger that needs to be processed, and there's feelings, and there's a sense of betrayal. And so, yeah, she wasn't everything I hoped it would be either, and this is not the way I want it to be, and she's not a bad person. Right? And I think so often when we experience loss, we tend to start devaluing the person in order to feel better about that loss. Like somehow if we can convince ourselves she wasn't good, that therefore it means we're better off without her. And I don't want to be that kind of a person either. And so it's like, yeah, I can acknowledge that there's things that hurt me. And I'm going to keep reminding my brain that she is a good person, that she is a loving person, that there's people who adore her, that I have adored her, that I want to keep adoring her, and that she has a full life, a good life. I want that for her. And somehow something I said and somehow we hurt each other unknown. We didn't mean to. And yet it happened. And so how do we get through this where we can own her responsibility and not need to devalue her, and we can still remind ourselves of how grateful we are for all that she is and all that she has been and all that she will continue to be for others. And so I feel like my process has to be guided by these three truths. That wherever you are in your process, notice yourself. Are you getting caught on one side or the other? Are you getting caught in just kind of constricting and saying relationships are bad and not wanting to trust again? Or are you getting caught in just trying to pretend everything's okay and not really reflecting back and learning from it? Are you getting caught in like devaluing her or devaluing yourself? Or are you getting caught in just kind of defending and holding to this one narrative that you are right? And so to me, the healthiest way to go through any kind of a process of loss is just to remind ourselves that all these things can be true. And they are true. And our job isn't to latch on to one version of the truth and then stick with it. Our job, our opportunity, our invitation in these moments, I mean, good grief, there's a lot of pain. We may as well harvest whatever good we can, right? My hope is that we can look at these things and bring with us as much growth as we possibly can. Because who we want to be on the other side of this breakup is not somebody who's more closed, who's distrusting, who's more hurt, who's licking wounds, who's not healed, who's blaming others, who's defensive. No. We want to be people who on the other side of this breakup trusts, loves, shows up, learns, grows, is more aware, is more attentive, is more loving, and is more willing to look at where we can be better and show up and where we can affirm her more easily. Nobody's good, nobody's bad. We don't have to be labeling, right? We just want to show up in this space where we're just like, help me see what I can see. Help me feel what I'm feeling. Help me own it. Help me not to dismiss it. Help me to grow from it. Help me to let this be turned into something that makes me a better person in the end. And that's my prayer. So as we go through all these other video series where we get more practical and more get into deeper steps, I just wanted to at least share the three truths, my things that kind of helped be my guiding light through this process. Hope that's helpful.